Guys, I'm really sorry. I said it was going to be 15 minutes. Clearly wasn't 15 minutes. I need a little bit more time, so I hope you forgive me. This is Unit 3, Video 2. I'll be done in 5 minutes, okay? So we ended up talking about loanable funds and crowding out. So I need to go a little bit further into that. So when you talk about loanable funds, this new graph, you have real interest rate, loanable funds, supply of loanable funds, demand for loanable funds. We'll go into this more later on. You got the shifters in the last video. So why do we talk about this in this unit? Because fiscal policy can have an impact on this, okay? And there's something you need to look at first before we go further into crowding out. Loanable funds tells you the price of money. Interest is the price of money. Whether it's real interest rate or nominal interest rate, we'll go into that next unit. It is how much it costs to borrow money from a bank, how much it costs, the price of money. It's a great way to look at it. It's connected to this graph, which you never ever have to draw, called the investment demand graph or investment graph. So we have investment on the bottom. We have interest rate, whether it's nominal or real right now is irrelevant. And you have DI, demand for investment. And so if the interest rate is here, this much quantity will be demanded and it will be used for investment in a society. If demand for loanable funds shifts to the left, or if people save more and supply shifts to the right, then the interest rate, let's use demand. Demand will go to the left, then the interest rate is going to go down, right? 1, 2. And then if you draw this way, what happens? Well, then the quantity supply, or the quantity demanded, increases to Q2. So there'll be a lower interest rate means more investment demand. If demand shifts to the right, then the interest rate goes up, and look what happens. Okay, so you've got 1, and then 2, and then 3. Now there's going to be less quantity when interest rates go up, so less overall investment. Why is this important? Because you have to understand crowding out. When a government borrows, okay, aggregate demand is supposed to go up, right? They're borrowing, they're spending. So as GP goes up, AD goes up. Sometimes, right? Only sometimes, crowding out occurs. The borrowing of money increases demand for loanable funds. We just looked at that. And so what that does, it increases interest rates, which then makes it more difficult for investors to borrow. So I goes down. Money is more expensive. So when government purchases go up, then aggregate demand goes to the right. However, there's a cost in everything in economics, the dismal science. Because of the borrowing, investment might go down because interest has gone up. Okay? So aggregate demand will go in the opposite. So it goes to the right and then it goes back to the left. And we call that crowding out investors. It's a possible problem when doing fiscal policy. Even if you're messing with taxes. Think about this. If the government increases taxes, right, in order to, right, they don't want to borrow, right, they want to spend more, so they increase taxes. So GP goes up, however, people have less disposable income. So now, because they're paying more taxes. So C goes back to the left. That's a form of crowding out. But normally the example you get is government borrows more, demand shifts to the right. They borrow without increasing taxes. So demand for loanable funds goes up, and crowding out can occur. Okay, and the other example I said, if they increase taxes in order to increase spending, then consumption will go down instead of I going down, because it's reversing the increase in aggregate demand. So another example of crowding out. But the main example was the one up here. Okay, I hope that makes sense. The last part of Unit 3 has to do with something called the Phillips curve. Okay, and the Phillips curve was made by a guy named, you guessed it, Philip. And Philip in the 70s noticed that when inflation was going up, then what was happening to unemployment? Unemployment was going down. And when inflation was going down, unemployment was going up. This was happening in the 70s. OPEC was messing with the oil supplies, creating an oligopoly in the market power for oil, and there was stagflation. Okay, so all these negatives. The Phillips curve isn't really relevant today. Economists have kind of said, well, these things aren't working anymore. But it's still important to learn because it explains economic policy in the past. And it's on your exam. That's the real reason you want to know. So it's connected directly to the aggregate demand, aggregate supply graph. It is a mirror. Okay, it's a mirror of the graph. So the rule is, well, let's look at the graph first. So what's the Phillips curve?
It's inflation on the y-axis, unemployment rate on the UR, unemployment percentage on the x-axis. You have a short-run Phillips curve and a long-run Phillips curve, and then an equilibrium. So let me get my chalk. Wow, back. All right, so you have an equilibrium here, okay, equilibrium here. So 2 examples. So the rule is these 2 graphs are mirrors of each other. When AD or SRAS shift, something's going to happen here in a mirror-like way. So they're showing the same phenomenon. When AD shifts, AD to the right or AD to the left, there's a movement along the short-run Phillips curve. The second rule is when SRAS shifts, there's going to be a shift in the SRPC. And we're going to do 2 examples right here. So let's say that there is a recessionary gap. So we'll do a recessionary gap because that's the most common thing we see. So AD goes to the left, right? So what happens to price level? Price level goes down. Output goes down. That's important. Output goes down. So what does that mean for unemployment? If there's less people less people producing stuff, then there's going to be more unemployment. So watch what happens. Let's say this is point A, and here's point A, and now here's point B. Okay, this is my recession. So where's my B? Well, over here. How do I know? Well, price level and inflation are very closely related. So they tend to move in the same direction. So price level is going down, which means inflation is going down from 1 to 2. And output is going to the left, right, towards 0. Less output, but that means more unemployment. So what has happened? There's been a movement from A to B along the curve. You have reflected what's happened during this. Initially, we're at long-run equilibrium, right, at the long-run Phillips curve. At the bottom here is natural rate of unemployment. Same thing here. This is also the NRU, right? Y at full employment means the same thing. Price level goes down, output goes down. At the same time, unemployment goes up. So we have mirrored each other. Okay. Let's do a different one. Now we did AD shifting. Now let's do the opposite. If AD shifted to the right, we have an inflationary gap. What's going to happen? Well, price level is going to go up to P3. Output is going to increase, right, to Q3. But over here, it's going to land us right here. Well, prices have gone up, so inflation goes up, right? This is my 3rd spot. But now, instead of this going to the right, output's up, unemployment goes down. So we had this one was 1, this was 2, and this is now 3, Q3, or unemployment rate 3. All right, so now this would be C, this would be C. AD shifts, moving along the SRPC. What about when the SRAS shifts? So let's do the most common example. Let's say there's stagflation. The price of oil skyrockets and every input price for all goods and services goes up. So we have a supply shock, a negative supply shock. SRAS shifts to the left. SRAS 1, SRAS 2. What happened? Now here's A, there's A, everything's good. Now B is over here. So prices have gone up, output has gone down. Y1 to YF to Y1. So now what happens? The SRAS is not over here, right? Output has gone down. So that means unemployment has gone up. So I got to keep going. This is where my B is. That doesn't look right, right? We're not moving along the curve. So what's happening? When the SRAS shifts left, the SRPC shifts opposite, shifts to the right. So the SRPC is over here. Unemployment is now up, output is down, price level up, inflation is up. If we went the opposite way, for some reason the price of oil jumps down to like $1 a gallon, then the SRAS shifts to the right, input costs went down. What's happened? Price level's gone down, so we're going to go, C is going to be down, right? And output is going to go up, which means unemployment is going to go down, okay? So in this case, if we were at A, we're going to go down and to the left. So C is going to be over here. Okay, SRPC 3, right? Unemployment is down, price level is down. Okay? Just remember the rule. When AD shifts there's a movement along the curve. When SRAS shifts, the SRPC also shifts. Okay? When in doubt, just draw it out. Okay, draw both of them out and you can figure it out. The last thing is, what happens if the LRPC shifts? Well, remember, the long-run aggregate supply shifts. If the long-run aggregate supply shifts, It's the same shifters as the PPC. So if the LRPC is going to the right, well, that means the LRAS is going to the right. There's more growth, which means the NRU must be going to the left. You probably won't see examples about the LRPC shifting, but just in case you do, at least you understand it. All right, that was Unit 3. I promise this time.